Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien versus Predator Galaxy podcast, the original Alien and Predator podcast. It's your regular host, Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks, and joining me is my usual partner in crime,
Adam Zeller, aka RidgeTop.
and this is episode 209. And we have one that I think is a little different for us, would you say, for this one?
Kind of. I mean, we've been doing more discussion kind of themed episodes, but this is another. Well, it starts as kind of an interview, but then I think it goes more into a discussion about this topic. So when I attended the Survios development offices earlier this year, and you can read about that or watch my video I did on that to try out their MetaQuest 3 version of Alien Rogue Incursion, they just had this awesome themed experience, I guess, that was part of like the waiting area before you play the demo. And I was just really impressed by that, and I managed to chat with the creative director of that event who was there, Steve Peterson, and he has a pretty varied history in the entertainment industry. And we thought he would be a good one to invite on to just discuss this topic that I've always had a great interest in, and I think you've kind of discovered a bit more, Aaron, even though you're I would count Aliens right at the speed of fright in this category, and so this
I
was an important
wouldn't.
catalyst. Really, are rides different than the experiences or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we talk about, is interactive experiences in terms of, you're in there, you're walking around, you're interacting with actors and whatever. Ride at the speed of fright, I would think of more as not necessarily a ride, but I don't know. It was a 4D cinematic experience.
What about something like Aliens Descent then? Because that's like a VR
Well,
game,
that
but
that's
you're
an
still going into a themed thing.
it's still an interactive thing because you are walking around that virtual environment. You are playing in that virtual environment.
But yeah, I mean, we digress. It's an interesting topic that I have found to be I don't
It's
know,
very
like,
much your pet interest at the minute, I think.
yeah, just I mean, getting to experience this stuff in person with really well themed attractions or experiences is just something I found an interest in, and we're starting to see more of that now with the Alien Earth events. That I attended one of those in Texas. I'm about to go to another one in Las Vegas, and if you're lucky, you might be going to something like that yourself in London. So
We'll see.
I thought it ended up being an interesting discussion. What did you think,
Oh
Aaron?
yeah, yeah, very much so. Um, like I said, it's your pet interest. It's not something I've got to experience a lot of. So I'm very much on the outside looking in, and it was interesting to hear about the sort of things that went into the creation of it, the sort of creative challenges, and some of the ideas that we discuss in here in terms of how to take that platform forwards in the future. So yeah, it was really interesting. I very much enjoyed Steve's what Steve had to say on the topic on these interactive experiences.
Yeah, and I guess we did get to do one together in London, Madame Tussauds.
Yeah, kind of. Not quite on the same scope or level as this sort of stuff that you're enjoying at the minute, but yeah. Or even enjoyed it at Halloween Horror Nights. But it's the UK, everything's shitter over here. Although the waxworks were fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. So I hope y'all enjoy this interview slash discussion. I know we certainly did. So it would be fun to have Steve on again. He seemed like a really cool dude. So without further ado, here's our chat with Steve Peterson. So thank you for joining us today, Steve. We met when I visited the themed event to promote the MetaQuest 3 version of Alien Rogue Incursion. You were the creative director for this event, and I was just really impressed with what you and your team put together. So could you just introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers? You have quite an extensive and varied career in marketing and entertainment. So who is Steve Peterson, and how did you get into everything it is that you do, from directing to marketing to spatial design?
Man, such a deep question. Who is Steve Peterson? Thanks. Well, thanks again for having me, you guys. This is awesome. Um, yeah, I basically I went to from Miami, went to film school in Syracuse many moons ago, then moved moved out to Los Angeles in 2000. I was producing, editing, directing commercials and promos mainly to start, and then I started a visual effects and marketing studio in 2003 called Big Machine. We were around for like 17 years, and at the studio, it was great. It was like we were mainly comprised of like in-house animation team and design team and a live action producer. So a lot of our work was like animation, VFX, live action all mixed together, and we would do like main titles like a lot of cool movies like Jumanji 1 and 2, and whole bunch of titles for Netflix and stuff, and lots of commercial production, long form shows, content. And then, part of that, because I think we were like an animation studio and we were always just working with technology anyway, going to all the conventions and speaking at them like NAB, SIGGRAPH, demoing software or whatnot. Technology was such a, kind of just big part of how we would ideate. Um, Getting into like experiential marketing and that just transition into that was super easy and felt kind of natural and like just an extension of what we were doing anyway. So instead of creating content for like screens, we started doing it in the real world, which really spoke to me because like it's so, I mean, to me now in 2025, after all the stuff we've been through collectively, like pandemics and being isolated that way, and the stuff the movie industry's gone through and the strikes Hollywood had a couple years ago, live shared experiences are like, to me, almost the future of entertainment. And they're so awesome and fun and cool and great to share with your friends and family. And, and those, they also seem to attract kind of like fandoms, like this Alien project and like all the fun stuff that happens around Halloween. In LA here, we have all kind of, from Halloween Horror Nights at Universal with all the cool IPs they build mazes and houses from, to like they do another really cool one down at the Queen Mary. I mean, it just seems like these shared experiences are like just the next level to me of entertainment, and they all involve a level of technology and design, which is very much kind of like what I started doing a bunch of years ago at my design studio. But now it's just kind of putting it all together for a live experience.
So we have a little tradition on our podcast with the first time we get to speak to guests, especially folks such as yourself who've done some cool stuff. Let's be honest. I mean, I didn't get to go to Survios because of that stupid pond in the way. But from what I saw of the coverage that Survio shared, that you filmed as well, and what Adam's put together, I was super fucking jealous. So especially people like yourself who get to do such cool stuff like that, we love to hear about the first time you got to experience the alien. It forms such an important part of our mental space and our passion and our hobby that it's one of those ones where we're like, but what about you? Do you remember the first time you ever came across our favorite acid-blooded space beast? Was it one of the films? Was it one of the random attractions or experiences? Like what you do?
Yeah, so Aliens, the Cameron one, that came out in 86, right? Checking, yeah, because I looked it up earlier and I'm like, yeah, okay. So my first memory, I'm in 86, I was actually 11 years old, living in Miami. And pretty much my grandparents raised me. My mom was like always working and stuff. And the awesome thing, one of the awesome things about that is like, they were also busy, and they weren't like super involved with like all the minutia of like content ratings and things like that. So like, I get my grandfather to take me to the video store, and he would just rent anything I wanted. So when I was like 10, 11, I rented like Chopping Mall. I rented like Phantasm. I was like super into horror, weird kid. And then one time I talked him into taking me to go see Aliens, and it was this like little theater in Miami in Coral Gables. It was awesome. So I got to see Aliens in the theater, which was really cool. And it was awesome because I think up to that point, and I can remember like the thing that really got me about Aliens. it was later after I discovered Aliens, then I went back, I don't know, years later, and I watched the original Ridley Scott Alien. Um, but the cool thing I remember about that stuck with me about Aliens, for the first time I had seen something that, like, also I was very limited in terms of the horror that I saw as a 11, like a kid. But all the stuff I saw was like an outside bad thing, like, chopping mall was like these like evil robots that would roam around and like kill you, and Phantasm was his ball, and even I think I got him to rent me Hellraiser. It's crazy, but they were all outside bad things. The crazy thing with Aliens was like the face hugger essentially turned you into a weapon, and you into the thing, and you had this ticking clock on you. Like, I remember thinking on it, it took me a while to like get that deep and layered into like how awesome the lore of it all was, but like that it was kind of the first time the bad guy could make you, like part of that. I don't even know if I'm explaining it right, but it wasn't just like an outside thing. It was like it became more personal, and I was like, it really like blew my mind. That was so cool. Of course, and the sound of the pulse rifle, that like iconic sound of trying to make it with my mouth never worked, but I tried.
The parasitic nature of the alien was something that absolutely terrified me as a kid.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally. So I completely get where you're coming from with you hitting onto that bit.
And I think we both saw Aliens before Alien as well. Isn't that right, Aaron?
Yeah, it
All
seems
the
to
way
be the
through,
way
anyway.
for so many people, and I think it speaks to how well Jim structured Alien that so many people watched it first and weren't confused by it, and then just eventually went back to it. It was the third film I saw, the OG Alien.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went Aliens, Alien 3, and then Alien.
Yeah, it was so cool. I mean, it was also a really neat, like almost like a genre jump in a weird way. Not totally, but it was like one definitely I wouldn't categorize as like an action film, but this then Cameron's to me is like action horror. He was able to absolutely capture the beating heart of this thing, which is like horror, space horror, um, but then infuse it with action. So maybe I don't know. Also, maybe it's our age generation. It's like that's when it was more like, and then it was a cool way into the whole franchise after you saw something that cool. But it was awesome.
Yeah, I think the genre blends are definitely effective. I mean, it's one of the reasons Predator is so strong as well, I would say. But yeah, so have you seen pretty much all the movies then? Like, do you have a favorite? Does Aliens remain your favorite, or?
Oh yeah, Aliens. Yeah, the Cameron's Aliens absolutely remains my favorite. There was that crazy one that the director of City of Lost Children guys did. What was that one with like Ron Perlman?
Resurrection.
Resurrection. Yeah, that visually that was so neat and weird and awesome too. But I mean, the favorite across the board was that. Um, well, and then since this is also you guys are bring Predator into it, like Predator One, of course, hands down. I mean, we still like I have buddies that whenever we see each other,
Did the
we give
clap.
each other the Carl Weathers Schwarzenegger thing, and we're always like, got you pushing too many pencils. Um, and then Prey, the recent Prey, like blew my mind. I was like, wow, this is so great. Like they finally did something cool with all the this attempt to do sequels of Predator. So it was, I guess that's where I would go: Predator One, and then Prey, and Predator, and Aliens.
Nice.
Can't
Yeah.
argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, Alien's been getting a lot of focus, I'd say, for our website and podcast recently, but it's going to be
Oh,
a
cool.
big year for Predator too. So
Yeah.
we're excited to see all that come about. But yeah, circling back a little bit, because I think Aaron was right. I think what you touched on in that first question does deserve a bit more focus. So, in terms of spatial design, what is it about these in-person experiences that you think is so captivating for just people and fans? Like, how should I word this? So, do you feel like maybe because of COVID, like that's a contributing factor because of maybe we've become more isolated with the way technology's going. Do you think that really draws people back to these kind of in-person experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. I feel like, gosh, I mean, I know too. It was so stir crazy, cabin fever towards the end of the pandemic when lockdown was just starting to open up, and I think everybody was so excited to get out again. And when production, started coming back, because I shoot a lot of commercials still. The protocol was so weird. Everybody was masked up on set. So it was hard to like. One of the things I love most about my job is like it's not just sitting in an office behind a computer all day. It's like interacting with people. It's a people job. It's communicating ideas and communication and just interacting with people. And it was so weird on sets to like have masks, and they would literally draw like colored circles on the giant circles on the floor on a set, and you had wristbands with different colors, and depending on your wristband color, those are the only bubbles slash circles you could stand in. To just, I mean, it was crazy how separated everybody had to be. So I think as when it went away and we kind of got back to normal, um, that I feel like it really contributed. It was sad though, because I was really good friends, still am, with, she was one of the producers of Experiential at FX, and they closed that whole department. They let everybody go because during pandemic, there was no gathering. So they just shuttered a lot of places that had like dedicated departments to that and had whole infrastructures and all this stuff. And FX traditionally like won like tons of awards for all their activations. Like Sons of Anarchy had like a killer one, and I mean a whole bunch of their shows. They go all out, like Fargo, all of them. And it
Before you
was,
go on, sorry,
yeah.
because this was something that Adam and I kind of didn't really know until these press releases for the Alien Earth thing. Activations for our audience that don't recognize that term. What do you
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, activation basically means like a real world in person event that you can go to that's themed to some kind of IP. So like the alien activation that kind of brought us all together was, um, was that we transformed the video game studio into like like a level of their video game, and brought the mood and tone and had all this fun stuff there. Um, the activation that you went to, Adam, and that in South by Southwest, and you put a bunch of, posted a bunch of great content on. That was an activation. One of my favorite activations, two of them of all time, were like, well, three. What one was like the Blade Runner one that was at Comic-Con a few years ago. That was like so cool. There was a Godzilla one where you'd go into like, you went into like a elevator and had all this cool projection mapping. And then my third favorite one was also at South by. It was for Westworld, where you got on a train and they gave you like, you had to pick either a black or white hat, which was kind of thematic of the show. And then you went to this town that were all actors. It was like a Western town they built. It was crazy. And those all are activations that are completely themed to the show, movie, video game IP that fans like.
Yeah, it was interesting. I hadn't really heard that term either until we got our press invitations for this one. But looking back into it, as you said, there's been some really impressive spaces, and I guess like a lot of my experience with that, I don't know if you'd consider like a Halloween Horror Nights maze an activation. I would say maybe an activation is more meant for promotional purposes and more short term. Would you say?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I guess E3, because I'd always wanted to go to
Mm,
E3 growing up, seeing all this coverage and all these big booths and stuff that were just highly themed, and they had swag and they had cool little walkthrough experiences and stuff. And I
yeah.
finally got to do that 3 years in a row before E3 left us forever again, thanks to COVID. So, but that had some really cool activations in it, I guess you would say. Um, so when I first visited Survios last November to try Rogue Incursion for the first time, there wasn't really any theming during that visit. I mean, I really enjoyed getting to try the game a bit early and interviewing the people from Survios. But I noticed another event right after our demos, which had this awesome looking theme space. And I'd see videos pop up on social media, and I was like, what is this? So we were invited back out to try the native MetaQuest 3 version, and the first thing I asked Aaron was, "Are they going to have that great looking theme space this time?" So I got to confess, while we were interested in comparing this new version of the game to what we had already played, I really went out there just to see this theme space more than anything else. And I think you all really just knocked out of the park with that. So tell us a
Thanks.
bit about how that project came about and your collaboration with Survios on putting this together.
Sure. Yeah, I think after it sounds like you went. When did you go? What month did you first go? Was it November?
It was November. Yeah.
Okay, so then I think yeah, I heard that they had invited some people out to like get just kind of an early preview of the game and just get initial reactions. That's probably what you did. Then there was a PS5 launch that we did in December, I believe, there, that I think is what you said you saw. Like you're like, oh, there was some cool theme stuff, and then for the meta launch in January, then they brought us back, and the PS5 launch did so well for them. Like they had a lot of they were able to sort of track the responses in the chatter online after the event based on the posts, that the media had like, put out there. And it did really well for the game. And, I don't know how people with those big brains figure out like, oh, the pre-sales are all just spiked after like all these things, so they're like, oh, well, the meta event is coming out. Let's do something bigger, better. So that was really cool. We got to, come back and like plus up all the ideas and go a little, push the ceiling a little higher. Um, so when they first invited us to do the PS5 launch, they had never done anything like this before. Survios hadn't, as a studio. Like they have a bunch of other really great titles like Creed and I don't know, a whole bunch of awesome. They're like pioneers in like the VR game space. But Alien is, I think it was probably one of their bigger IPs that they've got a hold of, and they've been entrusted to shepherd. So it was it was really fun. It's one of my favorite, obviously, like, kind of sci-fi franchises anyway. But because the mouse is the owner of the whole thing now with Fox and all that stuff, they were super involved in the first one in the everything had to get approved, and it was a rough, arduous thing because they would hold all these ideas that we would pitch for the live activation against the canon of the movies, the canon of the video game, which is slightly different, but all kind of the same world, the upcoming TV show that they didn't want to mess up, spoil, ruin, any of that stuff. Um, and other kind of factors here and there. So it was really hard to like find a sweet spot of stuff we could do that was within budget, that ticked all the boxes. That Survios was amazing, and they were incredible partners. Disney were like the strict parents, like they were like, we would come up with all these cool crazy ideas. Survios was also like, yeah, because I think part of the reason the game is so great, at least for me, is like some of the main studio heads, the creatives there, are like real fans. Like you walk into their personal offices and they're like adorned with like all this cool memorabilia and like sci-fi stuff, like across the board. They're just like, and that, I think that shines and that comes through in the experience they develop for the game. So same thing for the experience. They wanted it to be awesome. And they were cool. They were receptive to our ideas, and like, part of developing the idea is like seeing the physical space first. So we did a walkthrough, and then we're like, oh, what are the spaces we have to work with and transform? And the one big thing was in the reception room. I don't know if you remember, Adam, how like had these big giant this wall of frosted glass, and that was basically the wall that led you to the parking lot. And we were like, well, we could do what we're going to do on the other walls, which is like print giant vinyl wraps of the game level, or we can try to do something else with it, which we try to do, which was like a big rear projection effect to make it look like just on the other side of that glass were like xenomorphs and face huggers, like, stalking back and forth, and like, do some really cool spatial sound work to make it, you feel the movement and whatnot. So the space helps inform ideas, and then sort of what you can do within that, and not everybody else's limitations, budget, of course. And then on the second one that you went to in January, when they wanted to plus it up, then we created like that little hallway. The scare hallway wasn't there in the first time, so that was more of a just to get everybody in the mood and the tone right away. As soon as you walk in, you're kind of in this holding area in the lobby foyer with like broken monitors and dangling cables, and the Xeno has escaped containment and it's loose. And then we would invite the guests to just walk through this hallway to get to the demo room, but the hallway was like a mini, like a jump scare mini alien, haunted house thing, maze, whatever. And you'd walk, then you walk through and there was a little scare actor and he'd point you to this like monitor, and idea was to distract the guest's attention trying to look at this video. And then we had like made this really cool custom face hugger on a piston that like exploded out of this like ammo crate and like right in your face and would jump scare you. So hopefully that got the adrenaline going and set the tone, and then you get to go play the game. So hopefully people were right in the right headspace and frame of mind. And then after the game, you go into the reception area, and then there was like, then have fun and relax. There's themed food and whatever. But the one last thing we wanted to do, did you happen to go to the bathroom while you were there?
I did, and that got me. So that was
Okay,
fun.
cool.
I saw the red lights as soon as I went in, and I was like, "Oh, they got something in here, don't they?" And yep, sure enough, as soon as the door closed, the air blast or whatever definitely got me. But that was fun. There was nowhere safe in there, and yeah, it really surprised me because the last time I was there, it was just normal game studio, reception, and then this following time you go behind this black curtain and you're in this just crazy space with, like you said, the swinging monitor, and just the slime you guys did was so cool, how you had it in multiple rooms. Like, how did that even work? Was it being recirculated, or just did you have like a slime reserve just coming down the whole day or something?
Yeah, we ended up, so that was the same exact slime and manufacturer and all the stuff that does all the Nickelodeon slime for all their stuff. So they literally just make giant, huge vats and vats of this crazy stuff. And we talked about, yeah, is it going to just be going down the whole time into like a reservoir? But it would have just been such a ridiculous amount that we needed. So we built a pump that would recirculate it, like hidden through the art direction. So like there were, if you notice, there was always like probably like, I think it was, what is it, like a flexible conduit that was near the barrels where the acid slime was dripping, and inside the flexible conduit was a PVC pipe that recirculated it from the bottom of the barrel back up to the drip point.
Nice. So, and the rear projection was really cool, and one of the most impressive elements there. So you were saying that that's a window to the outside, or
Yeah, I don't know if you walked around that other side of the parking lot, but that was a window. Those are, well, that wall is a frosted glass wall that leads to the parking lot. What we had to do, because the events were in the daytime, is we built like a big giant shadow box essentially outside
oh, okay.
that sealed off all the light out there, out of like, production has like, floppies and duvetine and like whatever out of, frames and C stands. Like the production guys are awesome. They built this like light proof box outside that window. And then on the other side, we had giant projectors that like were projecting the content of the Xenos going back and forth. So it essentially turned the wall into like a rear screen projector.
Yeah, that
And
was kind of cool.
you had some, from what I've seen, you had some projection inside the room as
Yeah.
well with the egg. Was that created using assets from Survios? Were they actively working with you to create that kind of content to display during the event?
Yeah, and they were awesome, like super great and helpful. So in the space, the walls that look like the video game, technically the game level is called the nest, which is like where all the the eggs were. In that level of the nest, they were able to give us high res renders of their the, I guess, the 3D game assets of the room, because you need some pretty high res stuff to go to print, and at the giant size. So they gave us that. And what was cool is because they knew exactly, like we placed the virtual camera to take those stills at the right height. So hopefully it felt like the floor was an extension, horizon height of the print of the floor you saw in the wall print. So it all just seemed to match. It didn't seem like all of a sudden the room was higher, because they were able to set the perspective properly of their camera that they made the exports from. the frame grabs of the environment. Like there was a face hugger that came out of an egg on the wall print and then hopped down onto the floor metal grate on the wall print and then scurried away, and then it was like on a loop. They were able to provide us that whole thing, which was a game asset. So that face hugger that kind of came up and hopped down, they knew exactly like how high it was because they generated the background for it, how far it had to fall, and do all the cool animation, which is all a game asset that Survios provided.
Is that typical of your sort of experience doing these kind of events? That sort of collaboration with the people that you're doing the events for? Is that typical, or was that something a little special for what you were doing with Alien?
It depends. I think when it's like a protected IP, like Alien, where everything is scrutinized. I mean, every little thing was Disney was no joke about being the sort of brand shepherds of this whole thing. Like even the color of the slime that dripped was a whole bunch of meetings, because it was like, well, it's acid, it's this acid alien blood, and in the movies it's clear, and it was a whole thing. Um, but yeah, so I think when there's more of a an established look of assets that exist already, there's more collaboration versus like when you're doing something new or for the first time or fresh or from something that doesn't exist. You have a little more autonomy, but I feel like it feels like most of the time our partners are pretty collaborative with this stuff because they want us to get it right.
It's funny you should mention the slime color because I noticed that during my coverage, and I was like, "Oh, it's Kenner style slime," because on the old Kenner toys packaging, they had the aliens, and their drool was like neon green, not like the movies where it's clear.
Right.
So I just thought like that was an intentional like cool touch for that, just so it'd be more noticeable, because
Yes.
less people will see just clear slime coming down.
That was
Um,
exactly the discussion. Oh, and then, my gosh, the discussions of, like, and if it really was their slime blood, it would just burn through the floor and just keep going forever, and I was like, "Wow," I kept thinking about this whole thing. I mean, eventually, from a physics standpoint, doesn't it have to stop because isn't part of the acid will, like, burn through a solid, and then there's a little left that'll go to the next layer, and then but every time its volume decreases. So at a certain point, it's not like wasn't there like a Family Guy or something that dropped a lightsaber and it just like went into the center of the earth? Like that would maybe go forever, maybe, but I don't know. Slime physics, I don't know.
yeah, it does slow down. I think we see that in Alien. Otherwise
Yeah,
the people
they
on
make
the
a point of it in
Nostromo would be
Alien. Yeah,
screwed.
it
Yeah,
goes through so many decks.
right. Yeah.
But I noticed you guys had like acid burns like on the drum where it was dripping and everything too. So it was a nice touch. It was really cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, our art director, Tyler, was incredible. He was great. Yeah, he built a really great like 3D mock-up and kept revising it almost every day as stuff would change and tweak. And all of a sudden we got like access to these incredible like props from the movie. And then so we had to move stuff around and like find space to put them. And um, but yeah, he Tyler brought a lot of details like that. Like he really, thought about it, and he's a big fan too. So he was like, "How can we make keep plussing up the acid effect?" And it's like, "Oh, we'll burn the drums." And we also hid speakers, behind the drums to give the sizzling acid sound, just to kind of reinforce like this isn't just slime; it's like acid. And we put like a little smoker inside, so like a misty haze would come out of it.
Yeah, there were just so many different effects going on at once that there was always kind of something to look at. And as you had mentioned, Aaron, that projected face hugger that comes out of the egg just looked so cool. And yeah,
Yeah.
I spoke with
Thanks.
someone there who was from the Walt Disney Archives, and I guess he was just there to kind of oversee the props, which were the Alien Covenant eggs, which I didn't expect. I was like, oh, these are the actual props from the movie. All right, that's cool.
Yeah, it was crazy how he came across him because he told us he's like I think he's in some studio somewhere, warehouse in Burbank, and he's just surrounded by all these like amazing movie props, but very few people I think know that that department exists. so the like we were scrambling on the first one to try to find props, and we were calling collectors and seeing if we can borrow things, and but he's like, nobody ever contacted me. We're like, we didn't know you existed, and I forget, one of our producers found him, and he's like, yeah, like, it'd be they love to do collaborations and just get out there more with their things. Um,
So this
but that,
this wasn't somebody from Disney going, "Do you want to borrow our props?" This was like somebody on your side discovered this random bloke.
yeah, I mean, I find I've done a lot of work with Disney over the years. It's like there's not a lot of I don't know what the word is, synergy, or like, oh, we have this department that can help you, or I think everybody's so in their own like silo and like kicking butt at their job that they
It,
don't. Sorry.
sorry, I mean, as of recording, it is hilarious that you bring this up because on the forums we are at the minute discussing the siloed natures of big corporations and how um, realistic I personally find it to be that the idea that this random Wayland Yutani teams and departments going off all dicking around with the alien that are unaware of each other's existence and unaware of other people messing around with the aliens for you to throw in yet another real world example but within the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just hilarious timing on everything that's taking place there. Sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
No, it's very meta because, right, it's happening in the whatever, in the narrative fiction, and then it's happening real world behind the scenes under the hood of the company that like is in charge of it. But no, they're these giant companies are so big that they just don't know, and especially if they're in like, I don't know who we were talking to, people in marketing, maybe, or maybe it was just the people solely in charge of the Alien franchise. So they didn't know that there was like an archive department at Disney that has all these props from Alien. I mean, maybe they didn't put it together because it like kind of they acquired them after the merger of Fox or whatever. But I don't know, but yeah, somehow we found out on our own, and then all of a sudden, then they were amazing and so cool, and they were like, absolutely, the only the only one thing about this is I remember going to like a here in LA. I took my kid to this we went to a haunted hayride at Griffith Park, and they had a giant cool Xeno from Romulus, and they had like an armed security guy like standing next to it, so it kind of killed the whole illusion, because that was part of it too. Is like, Adam, I don't know if you noticed, but the guy from Disney was like always like right around the eggs.
Yep, I noticed that, and I asked him specifically. I was like, "So you're here to watch these, right?" And just to guard them. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny. My friend Mike, he and his girlfriend did the haunted hayride in LA, and I think they did it right after they set up the Romulus photo op. And he's like, "Oh man!"
Yeah.
But when I was in LA for Comic Con, I made a point to go to the movie theaters, like one of the movie theaters where they had that big full size xenomorph on
Mhm.
display. And I always think that's such a cool aspect of these like live events is there's just something about, even if it's just completely static, like something about being in the presence of just like a full size alien that, people want to see that and grab pictures next to it and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah, totally. It was really cool to see. And it's also, I mean, from just a fan point of view, I know I feel like, isn't each iteration of the Xeno a little different? Like from the what's this one? This one's like got the clear dome part. It's like this is like, I don't know, did Romulus have the clear?
Yeah,
Yeah, that looks like the OG from the first film.
yeah. For
Um,
our audio listeners, Steve is holding up a big chap figure.
NECA figure. I think that's actually the HR Giger, the like gray coloration variant. I think I have that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, each iteration looks a little different, and I think sometimes the fans try and justify that with narrative reasons. But it's really just, you have different creative teams on these things, and they all want theirs to look a little unique while maintaining that same xenomorph silhouette. So it's
Yeah.
something I always find interesting is like, what is it going to look this time? And we're seeing a lot of discussion with that with
Hmm.
Alien Earth, because this is the first adult xenomorph that Weta's putting together. Like they did the facehuggers for Romulus, but they're doing, I think, everything for the series. So we're really excited
Oh,
to see what they have in store.
oh, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't know. I actually didn't even know Weta was doing the effects for it. And looking, that's awesome. I saw a demo they did a few years ago at a SIGGRAPH where they have like a virtual, real-time virtual puppet thing that was like, it was a digital head, like super photoreal CGI, and then they have cameras on a person and performer, and as the performer would act, the CGI, digital
Re-
character would, but it didn't require further rendering. It was like done. It was incredible. Like, what is awesome.
So I'm kind of curious as to the sort of, I guess, pressures, or um, is pressure the right word? This idea of, you've got this space. This is where this is what we can give you. We've got this room. We've got this corridor. You've got 2 weeks or however long it takes. Crack on with it. That sounds like a bit of a, yes, I guess maybe pressure is the right word for it. It sounds like a pressure filled sort of marketing kind of thing. There, is that not? Is that the right way of describing it? Is it all short term? Is it limited to what you're doing? Is that helpful to you, or is that, you know I
The
kind of wish we had more time. I kind of wish we had more space. Or does it help focus you on what you're doing?
It's no, it's funny. Of course, everybody always wants more time and money, but yeah, like, does that, in a lot of cases, like, that's a really astute question, Aaron. Like, would that make a better product or result? I don't know. Like, at a certain point, I feel like people like kick into gear and like work, super hard, because like as people get booked on jobs and all of them, it's these activations, and a lot of them also are like union people in entertainment, like movies and TV shows. Like our special effects guy, his name was Steve Shines. He was incredible. He's a movie effects guy, and like, I know like him and his team hit it super hard for prep, and then the day before, and so the pressure is, yeah, so there's a lot of pressure, especially for a live event, because on other kinds of content, if you create it and it's going to go out and you have the opportunity to edit it, if it's a TV or movie, you can do reshoots, but live is like, there's a lot on the line. If anything goes wrong, I mean, it's like you've committed to giving people an experience that's going to be burned in their brain. They're going to remember, um, and better for worse.
Did you did you ever see that Willy Wonka thing over here?
Oh my god, the disappointment thing, and that,
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, yes, wow.
So that is a perfect example of when you get that wrong.
Wow. Well, I mean, was it get it wrong, or was it more of like what was that Fire Festival scenario where I don't think, did they even attempt to give like a true like, I don't, it looked so crazy.
Yeah, it really did.
Oh man.
And we were curious, have you had a chance to play the game beyond the demo? And if so, what did you think of it?
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it's great. I actually only played it. I played it there. They let me kind of just hop in the headset and just play around more than just the demo, because at the time, they'd finished the PS5 version, so that's what I played it on. I have a Quest 3, but I haven't actually played it at home on the Quest. Um, but it was, yeah, it's great. It's I can imagine that the experience playing it at home will probably be a lot better than, like, we were sort of passing the headset around and just taking 5 or so minutes, and then the thing I hate the most about VR games, whenever you're with a friend, they always think it's hilarious to like scare you and poke you. And I'm like, come on, like, rookie move, man. Like,
Yeah.
so then constantly it was just like, I just wanted to play the game, but it was like a lot of, camaraderie and everybody's goofing around. But this is a game I feel like you just need to zone out and like experience the mood and the tone, which is what they work so hard to achieve.
Do you do you get to flex, or does the team get to flex creative muscles on these things? So we've talked about the rear screen stuff. Survios provided it. You've talked about the way the slime worked, but then I've also seen like the fucking tubing with the movement to simulate a face hugger inside it. Is it like a very it seems like it would be like an interesting career opportunity to flex creative technical muscles working on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for everybody really enjoyed this particular one and had fun. A lot of times I think, there's certain type of jobs where the different super talented departments have, they take a job that's like, it's a great steady, it's a paycheck, it pays well and all the things. I think these kind of projects are more rare where it actually involves a level of fandom. Like I know a lot of the art department, even the grips and lighting team, they work on like, I don't know, they work on these big baking shows, where it's pretty much they just sort of set up these like little workstations for you know, their competitors to like, make their stuff at. It's like, like a reality show. And it's a fun show and stuff, but it's nothing like, rigging up like, a xenomorph ravaged space station place where, there's acid drips and all the, um, I think Steve Shines, our effects guy, was, while we were prepping this thing, he was across the street. I live in Studio City by Universal Studios, and he was there, um, like just doing kind of more standard special effects stuff, like doing pyro hits, like bullet hits on some show or whatever. And he's like does that with his eyes closed all day. He's doing bullet hits and little smoke things, but he was like, "Oh, I get to create," like he had a piston effect with this like face hugger, and everybody seemed like they were really excited to do work on something fun and flex their creative muscles a little bit more than just the usual stuff.
Yeah, I was impressed by your use of just fog and smoke. Was that like, did you use dry ice at all? Because I noticed one of the behind the scenes things you sent us. It was like a big box with liquid in it and bubbles. So I was wondering if that was actual dry ice or if that was just some form of fog machine.
Yeah, there's all kinds of fog and and smoke and haze, machines. Like haze is the kind of thing. We had a hazer, we had all of it. Haze is the thing that is like you can't see the billowiness. It just creates like a generic volumetric thickness in the air. That's like considered haze. Then fog is like you can see the billowiness of it around. And then cold fog, which is like basically it's always like dry ice mixed with fog juice in this machine that like basically chills the fog, is the stuff that lays low and then is on the ground. It only stays low because it's cold, so that's like cold fog. um yeah, there was all we ended up using all of it. We had cold fog in the face hugger box, so it would like hide the face hugger. And then we had cold fog in the reception room, so you could see like the lasers, um, on the on the the laser effect, that I think it was in the very first Alien, right? Like the in the where all the eggs were.
Yeah.
Um, and the haze just helped with the mood and like creating the cool shafts of light and all that stuff.
It's funny you mentioned the laser too, because I know a point of, uh, I guess, intrigue amongst fans with the recent film Alien Romulus was there was a point where they're in the hive and they see like the laser, the blue mist. But everyone always just assumed in the first movie this was a containment field that was part of the ship. But in Romulus, it seems like it's kind of a natural part of the hive, and fans were like, "Wait, this changes everything we thought about this weird little detail that we didn't really think about very much."
Oh,
And then just seeing it in the space, like when I was recording stuff, I was like, "There it is, there's the laser." What is that? So it was a cool, nice touch.
thanks. Yeah, that was a whole other like every little detail really was such a big thing, because to whenever you have lasers at a live event, it's a huge deal for safety. You typically need like a laser tech, like a specific licensed person that comes out and like, and makes it all safe and things can't be at eye level and the power of the laser has to be, so every little thing had to be, yeah, that the laser discussion was another bunch of back and forth with everybody. So
There's a lot of layers about these kind of events that you don't really expect, just on the surface of it.
yeah, you throw out you pretty much as my job, I first I'm a creative first, just try to come up with cool ideas and like, create from a creative point of view. And then all of a sudden the production and the producers get involved, and they're like, the reality to make these happen, it just turns into like the slime is 100 discussions about the color, the laser is 100 discussions about you know, the safety, the haze, a bunch of discussions with fire department with to set off smoke alarms and fire alarms to get those shut off, and talk to the fire department. Everything is a whole ordeal creatively. We initially wanted to have one of the ideas that got killed right before the event is everywhere you saw wires dangling at them out of the ceiling, we were going to have like just sparks also falling down. And we were going to use this thing called cold sparks, which are it's a weird little chemical powder thing that it doesn't burn. It gives a effect. It's like a almost like how flash paper works, like for magicians. It's like a quick thing. It doesn't have true heat to it. It just gives the effect. That was fine until the very last second, and then it turned into like a fire permit issue, and we got to kill it. But yeah, every idea is a litany of logistics and breaking of killing of dreams.
Well, it still ended up very impressive, sparks or no sparks.
Oh,
But
thanks.
one of the things I was, kind of surprised by when talking to you there was not only did you guys put this whole thing together, your team was responsible for the media capture of this event. So I'm sure that just must have been a lot to coordinate.
Yeah, yeah. We for that, I was able to like, put on my other hat of, making content for all kinds of, commercials or whatever, and bring in a team that just handled that. So yeah, that was the other big thing is we wanted to part of it was, in coordination with all the media we invited. When they played the game, I think they were told like we would capture footage of them playing the game that then we'd give them and they could use to like, make articles, stories, posts, whatever. And then we also wanted to set up the jump scare cam in that hallway with the face hugger to capture the scare, because that was a new fun element. Um, yeah, so that was a whole thing as well. Like, and initially, on was it no, this was okay because the game had already the meta event was after the PlayStation event, and the PlayStation event was the technical launch of the entire game. The meta event was just the launch of it on meta. So when we did the PlayStation event, the first one, like we couldn't we initially had a camera facing the screen so we could see what the players would see, in their headset. So there's context. Like if somebody goes like this, what are they doing? And then they could choose to show them pulling out their pulse rifle from over their shoulder or whatever. But the issue with that, then we couldn't send that out in at the December event because um they were playing parts of the game that weren't released yet, and like maybe some of that stuff wasn't totally finished, I guess. So then they didn't want to show it. And then they ended up, I think, just sending media at that event, like selected scenes that they had polished up, and then they could use as b-roll to like use for their stories. Um but yeah, that was a just more sort of logistical uh machinations of like, why can't we show footage and shoot this and shoot that. But then I think that goes back to Aaron's question about like, when you work on something that's a protected IP, there's just layers of that kind of security and thinking and stuff that goes into all this stuff.
So we know there's a part 2 for Rogue Incursion. And we know you probably can't say anything about it if you do know anything about it. But with your experience putting together those 2 events that you did with Survios, are you up for another round? Maybe expanding out a little bit more the space to promote a part 2 for Rogue Incursion?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I'm super excited. Uh, Hopefully to be working on the part two of it all. Yeah, it'd be great. I mean, the one thing I think I know this is slightly off topic of the experiential part of it, but I follow them obviously as a team and a company on all the socials, like every I guess people do, and I've been really impressed with how responsive they've been to like fix things and bugs and stuff like that. Like especially maybe with like a lot of chatter around the meta release. Um, that's been so cool. Like it's like as a team, I'm like, wow, already sort of the learnings that they're getting from part one, part two is gonna like just build off of that, I feel, and just be awesome, like more awesome, because now there's like this real world oh, what's the word? Like uh feedback event, when you have like a test screening, but it's like all of part one has been like the test for part two, so part two just probably going to completely kick ass even more.
Yeah, when I was talking to their lead designer there, Eugene Elkin, I asked him like, "Oh, is this the biggest game you guys have done?" And he was like, "Absolutely, hands down." So, uh, as much as we loved it, it did end on quite a cliffhanger. So we are we are anxiously awaiting part two whenever that happens to be dropping.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after I attended this event, I put together an editorial and video about my experience. And one of the things that I mentioned was how I'd love to see more of these kinds of things, and I'd like to see them open to the public. I mean, as cool as that press event was, and those can be a lot of fun. Like having a big public activation event is just something I would love to see more of. So I didn't have to wait long for that to happen with the Alien Earth thing at South by Southwest, and so I know you've had a chance to check it out with some of the footage and reporting. So, what did you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that that's one of those projects that I pitched on initially. I wasn't part of the team that did it, but I pitched ideas to do when effects was looking for a team to bring to do an activation or a big launch activation for Alien Earth. Um, so it was interesting to sort of see like what they ended up doing versus like some of the ideas we pitched from our team. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it seemed like it was like a crashed spaceship. Was it Whaley Nitani spaceship
Yeah.
that was crashed? And the same idea, like I think a Xeno had escaped or was running around or something like that.
Yeah, they had there's like a xenomorph final scare at the end, but they have all these different specimens. And one of the things that really impressed me was just how they were kind of getting participation from those who were going through it. It wasn't just walk through, get scared or anything. You were kind of narratively, you were an expert on site. You had to be scanned for parasites before you went in, and they were asking if you knew what these things were, and they were like, we brought you here to tell us what these are. And people would be like, oh, they're aliens, they're xenomorphs. And these people would be like, wait, what? Xenomorph? What are you talking about? So it was an interesting kind of switch with that, because I think a lot of events, they like, oh, here's the narrative, here's the exposition for you. But in this one, it was like, hey, we brought you here to help us, the scientists
Mhm.
there. So that was a neat kind of twist on it. And they had swag that they gave out, like a pin. They had this cool little postcard, which was like "Howdy from Austin, Texas," and they had this xenomorph with a cowboy hat. So it was just so well put together. I was really impressed. There was a line like the entire day around the block, so people were definitely interested in this thing. This was my first time at South by Southwest, so I was only there for a day, but I didn't realize just how big and how long South by Southwest is. It's like 2 weeks long.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
I definitely want to go there longer next time, because it seemed like there was a lot of other interesting things I would have been down to see.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I know I also love because right, I would sort of categorize those what you said as like as an active experience versus like a passive experience. And I think that that's always like one of the initial conversations when in ideating and concepting. It's like you talk to the client or whoever and are like, how involved do we want our guests to be? Is it like an active experience like what you're describing? And I think like also like what they did at I mentioned like the Westworld experience years back at South by, you were like fully interacting with all the actors in this Western town. And Blade Runner experience, you also had like this, I think it was like an RFID, like a cool bracelet they gave you, and cops would come up to you and scan you, and future cops would scan you, and they would pull up all this stuff, and it was really cool. Versus like I think like in this one we pitched initially some of those ideas, And then we were told by somebody, I don't know if it was Survios marketing or Disney marketing or something, that some of the media would think like, I think that they were inviting specifically for this because it was a different event, a different type of event than like the South by, that was more sort of open to the public too. But this was specifically media that like they just wanted to get to the game and not have to be like pulled into some whole thing. And they eliminated that aspect of the ideas from the meta event we did, to not have it so super interactive. Like the walkthrough was kind of the most they wanted to be. Um, but that's really cool. I mean, I personally love stuff like that, too, because it helped, especially when you have like actors that are part of the narrative to help pull you into the story and make and kind of force you to be a part of it. I think you always leave with your impression is more like you're really a part of it. Like your experience, you feel like you have a unique experience versus, even the person that could be next to you, because maybe you had a discussion with one of the people there that is special or unique that, and I always try to seek that stuff out. Like one of the coolest things I did, probably, gosh, I forgot this, like, ever, was years ago, we went to the Purge Live. They did a live Purge event in downtown LA that was so crazy. It was, like, super thrilling and stuff. You physically would start in this, like, um a theater of this old hotel, and there was like a politician up there, and like you got invited after his little speech to go and meet him backstage. And when you were backstage, you get kidnapped by like these purge people and like taken. It was so cool. There was no way to not have fun, I think, when you're a part of the story like that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'll have to look that up because I hadn't heard of that. I mean, I've done the Purge. Like they had the Terror Tram and the mazes at Halloween Horror Nights, and those were also really cool. But yeah, I think it can be a balance to strike because you don't want people to feel like in an event where there's participation, you want it to feel like they can, but they don't have to. I would say because there were people like they would scan your badges, and one of the badges would be one that worked or whatever, but it was never like too involved or anything. Like
Right.
there was this park here in Utah called Evermore Park, and one of the reasons I think it didn't initially succeed, I think it closed, and they have like a new team that's going to try again with it. It was a bit too LARPy in terms of like it was like a mini medieval fantasy themed park where they had all these scenarios and stories and stuff. And yeah, all that is great, but I think too many people were intimidated. Like, wait, am I going to have to go here and like live action role play this experience the whole time? Can I just go and
Mm.
enjoy the park? So I think it can be a tricky balance sometimes, especially with events that are meant to scare you, probably. But yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, I like both. I think sometimes just a passive walk through haunted house is the way to go as well.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's no accounting for people's personalities with that kind of thing. It must be such a hard creative and business kind of consideration to make when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, and I feel it is quite polarizing. I feel like some people hate it. I know some people don't, they just want to be more voyeurs about their entertainment and just watch or be told the story. They don't want to be a part of it, and it's really annoying. So it's hard to know, because it's not. So maybe the way to do it is like what you're describing, Adam, where it's like not super involved. And there's an option if you kind of shy away and the people see you not wanting to scan their badge and talk to them, they just leave you alone. It's not like they're forcing you to interact. And but yeah, I think that is kind of a polarizing element to either active or passive experiences.
Yeah, I know there's a haunted house here in Salt Lake City called Nightmare on 13th, and one of the things they've started doing for the last few years is like on weekends, on Saturdays during the day, if you just want to go and see the sets and take pictures, they have it so you can just go through without the scare actors and stuff like
Mm.
that. So it's an interesting option for people.
Yeah, I know some of the yes, there's some of the more intense haunted houses around that like will also give you like certain colored glow bands. Like if you want a full experience, I guess there's like green. And then if you don't want to be
That's
touched,
good.
or yeah, there's like red. So then when the scare actors can easily quickly identify like, oh, Steve he doesn't want to be touched or bothered. Oh, Aaron's got the green thing. Let me go and like, scare him, So yeah, I guess people are trying to figure out ways to identify that in their audience.
Well, it's good. I mean, it shows an evolving awareness of the format, the genre, whatever you want to describe it as there. And this kind of interactive thing has been something we've seen, really evolve in and how it's treated. I mean, as an Alien fan, we are mostly all aware of Alien War, surely, and to see how things change and how social attitudes change and how marketing changes and stuff like that is really fascinating, really.
Yeah.
And speaking of Alien War, there have been many kinds of physical alien attractions. One of my, well, no, not one of, sorry, my first introduction to the franchise, to Alien, I may have seen Aliens first, but before that, I did a thing called Aliens Ride at the Speed of Fright, and it was a motion controlled cinema attraction thing in one of our theme parks.
Oh, cool.
There's been, Alien War, of course, like I said, and then as we've gone through more recent years, there's things like the Halloween Horror Nights that were in where was it, Adam, Colorado? No, Orlando and LA. Sorry,
yeah, and Japan.
And Japan. We've had the VR walkthrough, which was Alien Descent. Kind of like a precursor to Rogue Incursion. There was a thing in Madame Tussauds in London that Adam and I both had the opportunity to do many fucking years ago at this point.
Oh, cool.
Which was just like well, Madame Tussauds. Do you have Madame Tussauds over there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was all the wax.
The wax museum, yeah.
Yeah. So they went a bit further with this one. They built sets and had wax face huggers, wax alien, wax people getting backbursted and stuff like that. So there's a little bit more to it than just a wax exhibition. But it was a walkthrough. There were sound effects, there was video displays and stuff like that. So, have you personally had chance to do other kind of physical experiences like that? Has there been anything in the States that you've done outside of what you've worked on?
Yeah, so I did the gosh, a few years ago now, the Halloween Horror Nights had it was an Alien versus Predator house maze. That
Yeah.
was super cool. I mean, I love that. That was like my favorite one of that year. I think it was the same year they had like a Crimson, was it Crimson Peak or the Guillermo del Toro thing?
That one was really impressive. Yeah, I did that too.
That was cool with the see-through walls but yeah, that was fun. But actually this year I did the craziest, coolest one. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat here. So this is a thing in Hollywood. I think it's still going on until, I don't know, late March or April. They extended it. It's called Alien Encounter. But what it is do you guys remember the Alien Encounter thing they had at Disney before they shut it down because everybody was terrorized?
Yeah.
So these people are amazing. So this is the people behind this is a company called Titmouse, which is an animation company that does like some of the coolest TV shows.
They work on Star Trek Lower Decks.
Lower Decks, yeah. Look up their website is who's who of like the best, cool, my favorite shows. I was like, oh, they did that one, they did that. They're amazing. So of course they're super fun and cool. I used to go to they used to have a comic book Sunday thing at their studio that was open to everybody. Admission was like one comic book and then you put it in a pile and you can take one when you leave. They're just cool. So they basically took the concept of Alien Encounter and they tell you, come to the show in clothes you don't care about. Because what happens is it's this concept where same idea from the Disney thing where you're in this little black box theater and then an alien is supposedly, they're transporting an alien into the front of the theater for you to meet him from across the universe with this technology. And of course, something goes wrong and they think it's friendly, but the signal gets hijacked by a bad one and it breaks out and the lights go out. And 90% of this is in the dark and you're just getting covered in blood the whole time. You're getting doused in blood. And it's awesome. and the lights come on, and everybody's like, what the crap just happened to me?" Um, but anyway, this was really fun because it was like, more of having fun with it. It wasn't like typically these experiences are horror and scary and moody, and it was like a tongue in cheek kind of version of all of it, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that when we were talking at the event, and I looked it up. I don't think they were doing one, or it was sold out or something while I was there. But no, the one in Disney World, the extraterrestrial alien counter,
Yes.
that was originally planned as an alien attraction, but I guess the Imagineers were horrified and pushed back against Michael Eisner on that.
Oh,
But eventually, Alien was in the Great Movie Ride at Disney World at
yes.
Disney's and formerly MGM Studios, now Hollywood Studios, and that was one of my first introductions to the Alien, and I was like, what is this?" And I think to this day, that's the only time an R-rated property, well, actually, no, because of Deadpool now, you've had Deadpool in Disneyland, I think.
Oh,
But at
yeah.
that time, that was the only time an R-rated property had been represented at a Disney park. And last year, I did an editorial on this big Malaysia theme park with Genting, which was originally 20th Century Fox World and had to be completely rethemed because they took a long time, and then Disney took over Fox, and there's a huge lawsuit. And they were able to keep a lot of these licenses with the exception of Alien versus Predator. And this
Hmm.
was like one of the core lands of the park. So it made me wonder. I mean, when Disney first took this over, we were all kind of like, what's going to happen here? Like, how are they going to manage this? This is an R-rated property for them. Like, but they've really kind of shown, as you've said, that they're very protective of it, and they are like doing things with it and taking off with it. So it does make me wonder if eventually, sorry, big tangent there, I know, but it does make me wonder if eventually we will see an alien in a Disney park again. I mean, that would be wild.
Yeah.
but
Oh my god.
but this
Well, have you seen that? There's a great meme that's like, because because Disney now owns Alien, technically the queen is a Disney princess.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
been going around.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's so awesome.
But this event that you were talking about by Titmouse, are they still doing that? I might have to see next time I'm in LA if I
Yeah, I
want to
mean,
get covered
if
with
you click on
flash.
the calendar, it looks like it's from March 29th to April 5th, so it's kind of the end of the run. They're doing
Oh, okay. I might
another.
I
Yeah.
might have to just watch a video of that one then. But no, that sounds like a lot of fun. Did you get to do Alien Descent down in Orange County when it was there? Or
No, I didn't.
yeah,
Was that
that was really cool. That was so it was a VR experience, but you go inside this building and it looks like you're in a marine ship. And then they
Ooh,
they fit you with these completely untethered like VR headsets, and it's Gear VR, so it's running off cell phone. I don't know how they did it, but it actually
wow.
looked pretty impressive. But they put on trackers on your shins and your arms, and you had like an actual gun prop, and they put you in these, like, they're supposed to be cryo beds or whatever. So they fit you up and they turn around, and then you're in this environment, and it's like a 4D sensory thing where you've arrived on this planet and you start walking on this catwalk, and it's like cold and windy, and you see the big atmosphere processor. And I remember the first thing I did was went over and just tried to grab the railing, and it
Mm,
was so trippy because I was in VR, but I just walked over and like held the railing, and I could feel it in the physical space, and I was like, wow, this is like really selling the immersion.
yeah.
And eventually you walk over to this platform that starts descending into this mine, and the temperature changes, it gets warmer, and like the platform's moving, so it feels like an elevator. I don't know how they did all this. We did an editorial on that as well if you're curious, but which shows some of the behind the scenes. But it was just really cool. It only lasted like a little bit less than 2 years, unfortunately, because I think it was right at as the merger was starting to happen.
Mm.
But that was just such an awesome event, that one.
Oh man, dang! I'm so bummed I missed it. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I've been to some other sounding similar VR things like that. I think one's in here in LA, Culver City. There's a place called it's like Sandbox VR, and some of their rooms have like physical props. Like one of them we did was like a through the looking glass thing, and you got to grab levers and pull them, and you'd see in your headset where like you're in some Da Vinci workshop, amazing thing, and reach out, and sure enough, you can feel the lever, and then after the thing was over, you take your headset off and there's like nothing in the room. It's really cool.
Yeah, I've only tried that sort of thing once with Descent, but I need to check it out more. Like I know there's a Utah-based company called The Void that had something at Disneyland, which was Star Wars based, and
Oh,
it was
cool.
that sort of thing. But yeah, I definitely I've been hoping another attraction along those lines for Alien would come back just because it was so immersive. You know, Rogue Incursion is awesome, being able to just, you know, you're at home late at night, you want to play a scary game in VR, like that's really cool. But as you said, there's something to be said for like going and experiencing this sort of thing with friends in person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And that's like the one and only thing, yeah, exactly, about VR. VR is so amazing because it gives you such an awesome sense of, like, you're in a totally transported into another world and reality, but it's, it's this individual experience, it's not shared. I know, like, what is it? Horizon on the Quest 3, like, Facebook is really pushing this, like, it's like their version of, what is it, VR chat? Where you have, like, your little avatar and you can see all the other people in VR
You can share rooms and join each other's,
worlds and
space and stuff like that.
spaces, yeah. But, that's I think because the I don't know, AAA games or whatever, but the high budget games immersion is so much greater than like basic VR. There's a really big gap
Mm.
between the idea of sharing an experience in Horizon, where you look like one of the old Nintendo Wii characters, Mii's.
Have you done any of the virtual concerts?
Oh yeah, I've seen a
Yeah.
couple.
So, I mean, it's like the exact same thing where it's this weird perspective of everybody's me avatar
Yeah,
looking things, and then this actual looking footage of a proper person on the stage, so to speak, and it's this weird disconnect between the two appearances and styles. I totally get what you talk about. Yeah, it's weird.
yeah, totally. And that one time I tried to do, I forget what platform it was on a year or two ago, where my friend was across town and we're like, "Oh, let's watch a movie or something together." And we tried watching in this virtual room, and I look over and I could see them next to me as some, like, like little super basic avatar, like a circle head, and like they had no arms or legs, they were like a body, and I'm like, this isn't really the same thing. It's like, I don't know, but it'll get there, I guess.
Honestly, I think the most impressive thing to try that sort of concept was, for me anyway, was PlayStation Home, like back in the 2010s, and that unfortunately didn't pan out. But yeah, that had a lot of. It was like the whole Second Life thing, Ready Player One
Yeah,
kind of idea. So yeah, I
right.
mean, for a company with the resources like Facebook has, I wasn't super impressed with Horizon either, and I don't know the current state of it, um, but yeah, hopefully maybe that gets to some parity eventually.
You know how you can sort of feel what industries in the world are like pushing, trying to shove and force everything to where, like, definitely have felt for a few years now, like it's all is a big push for VR, and I definitely think the idea, at least, of the Quest is a huge step closer than all the other iterations of headsets that are heavy and cumbersome and tethered. um, I mean, I know just in general, the Quest, as when I think the quality of the visuals can get up to par with like a PC headset or even PS5, then that'll get closer. But then now, the promise of all these new AR glasses coming out, like CES had a whole bunch of these cool devices that were like, I don't know if any of you guys have played or ridden Super Mario, was it the Mario Kart ride
Yeah,
at
I
like
have.
Universal? That's like kind of the first, like, "Oh, cool, I can see visuals through a transparent screen on my head." I mean, granted, that's also tethered and all this stuff, but, as technology gets better, that'll be really cool, next level, I think, to making, I guess it's more augmented reality. That'll be AR over VR, but, it's there's still a barrier, I think, of entry to VR for those reasons.
Well, wasn't is it Google or Microsoft?
Google
Google
Glass.
Glass? Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
hasn't that been a thing that's been in development for like well over a decade now as well? I mean, it's not very common technology. But then you've got
No,
things like
it
Ray-Ban bringing out the
Meta, yeah, the Meta
yeah,
Ray-Bans. Yeah,
yeah,
but even before all that, there was a Microsoft HoloLens. I don't know if you guys remember that thing. HoloLens
yeah.
was like,
That's what I'm thinking of. That's like 10 years old.
yeah, that was like the first one that was like, I don't even know if it made it to market. It was just like it was like a almost like a prototype thing, and they demoed it places. I don't know if they ever sold it. It was so expensive. I remember when they were like, you can buy it for like whatever. Back then it was like, oh, like 10 grand, and you're like, what? Um, but
Yeah, I think they only sold that one too. Like it was meant for developers. I think anyone could buy it, but I mean, it's the same problem. Yeah, VR is really coming into its own, but at the same time, you're right. It's not accessible enough for most people. I saw there was a recent announcement by Big Screen of their second headset, which is a very compact VR headset. So that looks quite interesting. But as
mm,
far as the AR stuff goes, I guess the first like mass market consumer thing would be the Apple Vision Pro. Is that what
oh
it's
yeah.
called? But even that, I don't think has done very well. I think that's more of like a proof of concept for a kind of interface that they'll eventually do in the future. Eventually, it'll be cheaper and more accessible and stuff like that. But I mean,
Yeah,
I
I mean,
guess
it's
that's
almost $5,000. Like it's like $4,500. Like who can
yeah.
afford that? You know?
But I believe the very first Alien event would have to be the Halloween walkthrough that collector and archivist Bob Burns put together in 1979 after the original film's release. We don't really have much that's been saved from that one other than a few photographs, but even the film's producers were impressed, which led to them choosing Bob to be a caretaker for a lot of the franchise's props through the years. Now, you've mentioned to me that you had a neighbor who was friends with Burns. Did he ever tell you about this walkthrough that was put together?
No, he didn't. My my neighbor just happened to be Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov on the original Star Trek series. He is a super great guy. He's awesome. But I've been in his house and in his office. He's also like just a big memorabilia guy. Memorabilia. I'm like most of it is Star Trek. Like he's got all the figures and lunch boxes and all that kind of stuff from the TOS from the original series. Um, but no, he never did mention Bob's stuff. But after you told me about him, I looked him up, and God, I wish I could have seen his collection.
And Walter Koenig was in that event. He actually performed as a character in Bob Burns' event.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so
Or
cool.
or so the reporting says. There's not much about that event. I think there was an article in a Starlog back in the day, and a few
Mhm.
little bits and pieces. Although Bob did get a very nice feature on the Alien quadrilogy stuff. But yeah, Chekhov was on the Nostromo at one point.
That's awesome. Wow, they're crossing over now.
It's something I've wanted to see again. Was just like a walk through something based on that 1979 film. Because as much as I love AVP and the AVP mazes at Halloween Horror Nights were great, like just that experience on the Great Movie Ride of being on the Nostromo was so cool that I think it would translate really well to a walkthrough maze. And I remember asking the creative director, or actually, I saw a tweet. Someone asked the creative director of Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood if they were going to continue to do American Horror Story, and
Mm.
he's like, "Oh no, it's Disney now." So, and I was like, "Really, Disney? Like, do you just see Universal as that much of a competitor? You won't license out your stuff to their?" Because it's weird because you have these like Universal still owns rights to Marvel and rights to Simpsons for their parks, and they have Halloween Horror Nights, and Disney has their own Halloween event, but it's not like adult oriented or anything like that. But they're starting to do these pop up things with Alien Earth. So are they going to do something about it? So yeah, I'm sure there's just a lot of franchise politics involved with that. But at the end of the day, I would very much love to see something like a modern version of what Bob Burns did with putting together a walkthrough for that original film.
Yeah, man, I kind of remember now that you mentioned the Great Movie Ride again. Was there like a just an it was an animatronic of Ripley, right, standing in a
Yeah.
corridor, and she was holding either a pulse rifle or a flamethrower, like one of the two things. Was it?
Yeah,
Is
as a flamethrower. And she had very unkept hair that
yes,
got
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
wild. Yeah.
right, yeah. She was wearing like the white wife beater or like tank top or whatever, and um, I think, or no,
Yeah.
was it the jumpsuit,
I think it was her flight suit. Yeah.
flight suit? Yeah, that would be cool. What would be hard though about what you're saying, Adam, is like I think capturing the tone with a massive um experience like that, because even with like our little thing that we did at Survios, the scare hallway, we had like a 3-person max, like, capacity, like, walkthrough, because of, when you I think when you have too big of a group, it loses it's hard to maintain, like, get people scared, or get people in that frame of mind that they're actually, like, like, if you're with all your buddies and all your friends, and it loses it. I don't know, maybe I'm just, because the walkthrough mazes at Universal, they just shove you through in droves and you still get scared, so maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm off.
Yeah, the podcast we recorded before this one, actually, we had on the creative director for the Japan AvP Halloween Horror Nights maze, Adam Milicevic, and he said the same thing, that it's tough to really scare people when it's just the conga line through the mazes, and that's the problem with the Halloween Horror Nights event, is it gets crowded, so they
Yeah.
can't really space out people too well. And some of the most fun times I've had was like, randomly they'll go into November, like 1 week into November, and by then everyone's Halloweened out. And when I went with my girlfriend, there was like nobody there. There was no wait for anything. And so,
Oh,
um,
cool.
yeah, it's a tricky thing to do with haunted house spaces. I am really excited for the Halloween Horror Nights setup they're doing in Vegas, though, where they have like a
Oh, yeah, Area
they'll have
15.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Universal's doing their own thing there, where they'll have like a lobby with a restaurant and like 3 big mazes, I think, that'll like rotate out different themed things. So that's also another really interesting concept I would love to see with Alien. I mean, there was a lot of different things in your event, like you had a bar too, and I when I was researching for this podcast, I saw there was an alien themed bar in Switzerland. I think it was called Mad Max or something, Aaron, right? Oddly enough, like just Mad Max bar, even though it was all alien themed, but they had this big queen alien coming out of the wall behind the bar and everything. And so, yeah, I mean, they've done it
And
with Star Wars, so I would like to see that one for Alien.
That's awesome.
And we're really starting to see interactive marketing, make its way into everyday life. We saw this with Romulus having the random facehugger victims in public or movie theaters across multiple cities in the States. In your marketing campaigns, you've utilized those enormous screens on the corner of buildings, where they make it look like stuff's coming out of you. There's like a big thing in New York, is it? And there's some in Tokyo, and I think London has one as well. There's a real push towards real world experience in the promotion of shows and movies and franchise games and everything like we've discussed today. Alien Earth, Alien Rogue Incursion. As somebody who is in that arena of marketing, do you see that continuing to evolve, and what new things do you feel like eventually be in store in that sort of space for Alien? Can it keep going? Can there be more to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the more that they evolve, the story, the more opportunity. Like, I love the all the really cool, like, face hugger viral marketing stuff they did for Romulus. Like, all over the place, where they would just have people with the face hugger, like, laying on the side of, like, newspaper stands on the sidewalk. And they did a lot of really cool stuff for Romulus. Um, I think with Alien Earth, like, some of the things that'll come out and in the episode, that'll really evolve and show new things and facets of the story and the world, will give new opportunities, for other kind of cool viral marketing um events. I think too, like, it would be cool. What would be like, because the unique thing really about the world of Alien, which is something we had to think about for our activation we did at Survios, is, like, it's a crazy, like, retro future that they're in, because of the computers and, like, some of the stuff that just, like, which they captured, I think, perfectly in Romulus. Like, well, I think, like, Prometheus and these other ones were, like, super advanced future. Even, Ridley did them, but just went modern, because I'm sure at the time he was obviously trying to make the most modern vision of the future he could in set in 79 when the original came out. But then Romulus, I think, purposefully took back the production design and art direction to his world, where, like, the computers were all sort of like a little more old school, and the switches were bigger. Um, so it's like I think figuring out a way to modernize stuff in our world in a viral way that could give people more of a maybe like an individual unique, you know, either experience or bit of marketing or some piece of content. Like if they could be, might be cool to to do something where I don't know, maybe if you it could like mine your photos on a social account like on Instagram or you know something and then like comp you into you know using like a bunch of the new generative AI stuff to like comp you into a scene or you know so you really feel like you're part of it in like a fun way. Um that could be kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the retro tech thing, because I do think that was something Romulus handled well, and also taking things we could kind of relate to in a modern sense, like the video watch is something I always kind of point out is like that looks old and retro, but it's not the old Casio that was in Alien. Like it's a watch with modern functionality that people can relate to, just with a very kind of retro aesthetic. So
Yeah.
um, that's another thing I think people are drawn to these days, like analog stuff, even things like vinyl collecting. So I think, yeah, in the world of alien themed experiences, interacting with that retro tech more, like that's an interesting idea, and I think that could be something.
Yeah, totally.
So you had mentioned a bit earlier that you guys were also in the bidding to do an event for Alien Earth, uh, and the who did you say the team was that got it? We thought it was Civic that put it together.
Oh yeah, no, I was right. I was just telling the name of the team I pitched with was it was a different team. We didn't
Oh, okay,
we didn't get it. It went to yeah, it went to Civic.
okay. But what for what you can say of it? What were some of your ideas for that? And to kind of draw that out a little bit, let's say you're hired to do any kind of alien event you would like to do, like a haunted walkthrough maze, a full-sized alien themed bar, like I mentioned, or a ride or an attraction. If given the opportunity with no budget limitations, what sort of thing would you see yourself wanting to build for Alien?
Man, the the idea that I came up with that I loved, I was like, oh, for sure we'll get it because this idea is so cool. How could it not have been done before? Was basically setting up a walkthrough, and you would be handed a motion tracker. And so like have holding a motion tracker in your hand and then, you know, we would set up like the like ways to trigger the motion tracker would be like a system of I don't know, what like programming and um like geotag. So as you got close to something, it would like the signal would go up higher and lower or whatever. But you know, not it's not that complex a thing to code, but like basically you could you would be it would be super dark and you'd have to like use a motion tracker to like either get through a space or rescue a person, like whatever the case is. But I like that would be really fun because it would sort of bring in a huge component of you know the movie that I think people like you know associate with, and the sound of the motion tracker, the like pinging sound is so iconic too, and it's fun. It's like interactive. You're not just passive. You're sort of you know a part of this little fun thing, and then that would be opportunities for jump scares. Like the motion tracker would lead you to certain parts of the room where like either something would pop out of an egg or like you know somebody that you thought was just like you know cocooned in like a wall, like alien organic net thing would like pop forward, or you know, that would be really cool. Um, and I think doable and not like insanely crazy budget wise, but it's you know it's definitely a little bit more lead time because we take programming, we'd have to make a custom prop and you know multiple obviously. Um, then the other idea that actually was a Survios, we pitched Survios. For some reason, they Disney, I think, said no. I think it was Disney, but it was like a virtual. Oh, and sorry, and the motion tracker idea is a shared experience. Like you're in doing it with your friends. You know that one's cool. Like you like again, small group, one person has a motion tracker, everybody's together. Maybe you give a broken flashlight to another one that's like either really dim or flickery or something. So they think they're in like gonna save you know they're able to see but um the other idea is like yeah virtual like a cargo bay where they have specimens, and using the same idea that they have at in the Mario Kart ride with the visor that has like AR, glass in it. You would get either like a colonial marine helmet or something that you had to wear that was part of the theme of the movie and of Alien. And you're wearing this thing and it has the AR glass on it, and you would production design, like build a really cool art space, like art directed space that would be like a cargo hold. And you as you walk around, you're seeing these different specimens in like containment fields. So you could walk up and right up to a face hugger that's like in a state. They're all in like stasis, except maybe a couple of them, like when you get close, they activate and give you like a little scare. But it'd be really awesome because like this allows you to have like a 3D experience. Like you could walk around, look up, down, left, right, all around the object, because technically it's a 3D object that you're seeing in AR. So you're controlling the point of view. So you could like see it from all angles, inspect it. It could be all the things. It could be you could put a power loader in the middle of the bay and like go check out all the cool hoses and pistons and hydraulics that are make up the look. Um, but those are the two I think that would be awesome if I won the alien lottery of money to make an experience.
Both really interesting ideas. So the motion tracker one, that was the idea you guys pitched for the Alien Earth activation event,
Yeah,
or
that was one of them. Yep.
That would have been cool as well. If you do win the Alien lottery, can you not make it US exclusive, please? I'm getting so jealous of all this stuff I'm missing out on, and I'm sick of organizing for Adam to go to do these cool things that I can't do. So bring it over here, please.
Yeah, it's funny because I think like Ridley Scott isn't he British? He's British, right? And I think they've shot most of these things at Pinewood, which is in the
First
UK
three.
also. So it's
Yeah.
like,
I
yeah,
went
there
to
should
them.
be.
Sorry, the first three in Prometheus. So yeah, there is some legacy over here.
There's
Come
legacy, man. Yeah, we should be doing stuff over there.
It's funny, like hearing you guys talk about like the cool experiences that you get to do with like the horror mazes and some of like the VR kind of arcadey kind of stuff. I've been to one random sort of VR arcade over here, and the most interactive bits of physical space and design were pillars that they made sure to put in the game so you didn't fucking run into the pillars as you were walking around the room. That's about as exciting as things get for me, unfortunately. But
Oh,
it's been really interesting listening to you talk about this new. I don't want to say new thing, but this interesting way of involving people in the marketing, in promotion, in excitement, in hype. It's a really, from the outside looking in. Um,
no,
which,
thanks.
which is it's also I think kind of a little bit of a detraction to the format, FOMO, and
Mhm.
the people who can't get to do it, but it also makes it such this unique and interesting thing that you guys who do get to do it, you get to put it together, and get to go through it. And it's really cool, really unique, and really, really interesting.
Yeah, thanks, man. Actually, if I can go back and modify one of my answers, I just thought of something that would be really cool. I think because of what you were just sharing about how you perceive experiential stuff. One of the questions, as your question, Aaron, about marketing and what could be next in for the Alien franchise and Alien and marketing. It would be awesome to involve audiences if like these experiences weren't just like, right now there was a lot of discussions of things to not disturb the canon, to not disturb the lore, and just like honor it, and just the stuff that's already out there, we celebrate it and like, put it on and like live. But what if it'd be super cool if like we did, things that were evolve the canon in live experiences. Like maybe there's a side character, like a tiny side character that's established in one of the movies, and then their story is what you're experiencing, more of in like live.
Even
You
more
know?
multimedia kind of involvement with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't mess with things too bad. It wouldn't hit the main character's main storyline, whatever. But at least you'd feel like, oh, this is cool. I'm digging a little deeper in something that's kind of established in a bigger
Yeah.
world, but now I get to have more, and it doesn't disturb anything. Like, I don't know. I mean, if it's like whoever somebody that made the android character from Romulus, and then that's who you're meeting is like the creator of him, like something that's like associated enough that it feels cool, but like it's not gonna there's never gonna be like an entire like series based on the guy who like designed created the android from but yeah.
I just had a random thought there. Talking again of my jealousy. Ways, interactive ways to involve people not physically there. I mean, I feel like Alien actually has that built in. With the whole Gorman setup. Watching these cameras of things, and I feel like that's perhaps a way that these kind of events could sort of involve people not physically there, but still keep them involved in the hype and the market and the experience.
Yeah.
Another thing too is like, I guess traveling exhibitions, like one I was particularly impressed with was the Jurassic World one, which I went to in Denver, but that's been all over the world. That's been in the UK as well, Aaron. And that's it's like a walkthrough experience. They have all these different rooms. It's like part show. And so something, and I think they did one for Halo as well in Southern California at one point. So something like that for the
Discovery.
franchise. Yeah, for the franchise of Alien, where it's like this is a Weyland-Yutani facility or something, but maybe they have like ship models there. Something where it's like an interactive experience introduction to this franchise for people who either really love it or people who are less familiar with it. I think could be also really cool.
Yeah, those are great ideas. All right, I'm gonna call you guys on the next one and be like, can we brainstorm?
we are available for consulting. We have consulted on official Alien and Predator media in the past, so
Oh yeah, oh
do
cool.
not be scared to make that a serious thing.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's actually everything from us. Before we let you get back to your next project and develop new ways to scare Adam as he's walking through a corridor, while we're bringing that bit up, I saw him in the reel that you'd put together,
Yeah.
and it made me chuckle. But yeah, sorry. But before we let you get off, is there anything you'd like to say to our audience, or any thought or anecdote that we just haven't given you the opportunity to with any of our questions?
Gosh, no, I think it's all been covered on all your awesome questions.
Good.
Cool.
That's what we like to hear. We like being thorough, don't we, Adam?
Yes, sometimes we are quite thorough, but again, thank you for joining us. We've kind of been just discussing more topics, I think, on the podcast, whereas before a lot of it was like, oh, we're talking about this latest book or this latest movie or something. But I think we're just kind of doing more discussions on these kind of random topics like this one. So thank you for humoring me and coming on and discussing this with us.
No, absolutely. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be connected, and it was great. Yeah, thank you. This is awesome.
Okay, and hope you all enjoyed our chat with Steve. I have recently done a new article on this sort of thing for the Halloween Horror Nights Maze in Universal Japan, where we talked to that event's creative director, Adam Milicevic, who I believe that's our next podcast is going to be an interview with him. Is that right, Aaron?
Depends if you finish it.
Yes, our next podcast is going to be with him.
Mine is trying the next one I'm working on is the Alien 3 Legacy one.
Okay. Aaron wants me to get more into the audio editing of podcasts, and
it's just this one specific episode, Adam. One specific episode.
Okay. Well, I still think I'll get it done in time for it to be our next episode. So keep an eye out for that, because it kind of touches on some of the same topics that we discussed here, I guess.
Mm-hmm. All right, and where can people find us, Adam? Or shall I do this bit since you led us out?
Why don't you go for it? I want to see how you pull it off.
Well, I find this super boring because I skip by this on other people's podcasts. But if you want to find out more about us, you can find the hub of our activity on avpgalaxy.net, where we have the written news. That's where you'll find all the Alien and Predator news and from the community is on avpgalaxy.net. We have written versions of our editorial sort of content that we'll put up on YouTube. So Adam's video that he's just put up, if you for some reason would rather read than watch a video, it is on there. We also have a very active and thriving community message boards. The forums are still a thing, and ours is very much alive and kicking and very much my preferred place for discussion. We are also on all the major socials. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, X/Twitter, Blue Skies, Threads, all as AvP Galaxy or Alien versus Predator Galaxy, versus as in VS. I am accessible on X and Twitter and Blue Skies. On Twitter, I'm _ Corporal Hicks. On Blue Sky, I am just Corporal Hicks. Adam, how about yourself?
If you'd like to follow me personally, it's at RidgeTop21 on both Instagram and X. I am also starting to become more active on Blue Sky, so I think if you just search RidgeTop there, you should find me.
Indeed. And to everybody who is listening still and hasn't skipped by this bit like I do on everybody else's podcasts, if you could leave us reviews on the show, if you could leave us ratings, if you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and all that bullshit, and a subscribe and a comment down below. All that kind of stuff is algorithmically helpful to us. It helps our visibility on those platforms. And if you know any other Alien or Predator fans who would be interested in this kind of stuff, please share it with them as well. That all helps us.
And as per usual, a big thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support what we do at AvP Galaxy, check out patreon.com/AvP Galaxy. We have a few new members since our last podcast. Ian Kelly, who has joined our Warrior Hunter tier. Benjamin Holzapple also joined that same Warrior Hunter tier, so thank you for that. Cyrus as a Praetorian Elder tier, thank you for joining as well. Nathan Gribble, who joined our Warrior Hunter tier, thank you for that. Ella Miados, I hope I'm saying that correctly, joined our Facehugger Youngblood tier, so thank you for that. And Xander House has joined our Praetorian Elder tier, so thank you for that. Also, Perfect Organism Podcast joined that the Facehugger Youngblood tier, so thank you as well.
And we actually lied. My next podcast I'm working on is not, in fact, Alien 3 Legacy. It is the new genetic memory episode that we just recorded a couple of days ago as of us recording this. We're a little in and out, and it is a episode on Event Horizon, which I thought was really good. I quite enjoyed it. And Our Genetic Memory is a Patreon exclusive podcast where we talk about things that are tangentially related to Alien and Predator, whether that's thematic, narrative similarities, or films or projects that people who worked on Alien and Predator related things have been and worked on. And Event Horizon covers a lot of that because it's a Paul Anderson thing with Alien cinematographer on it. And it's got some narrative similarities to the tone and feel of Alien. So yeah, that's the next one. That's out there for our that will be out there for our Patreons once I've done it. Then I'll be on to Alien 3 Legacy.
Yeah. Just to make sure I'm getting everybody, let me go through the rest of March here. So Christopher Bouquet and Darren Gold joined our Facehugger Youngblood tiers. Thank you for that. And David Fisher joined our Praetorian Elder tier. So that is all through March. I believe we have announced everybody on the podcast. But thank you very much. We're also working on a recognition page on our website, so keep an eye out for that.
Indeed. And I think that's everything now. So thank you everybody for listening or watching. This has been Corporal Hicks
and RidgeTop
signing off.